Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks Captures Threats, and in today's episode, in episode 11, we'll be going over how to use the bishop effectively. So, from last episode we had a new playlist of Learn the Openings. So hopefully you saw that we're going over the Queen's Gambit. Hopefully you watched that, it's very good. It gets a good understanding of opening that you can start with. And the episode before that we went over how to use the knights effectively. So we're going over the other piece worth 3 points now today. So we have 4 examples. We have the first one here being how to use a bishop in the centre with a pawn. The second one will be what is a frenchetto and how is it useful. Then the third one is how bishop is good on long diagonals. And then the last examples are on cramped and uncramped positions. How is there a difference? So, here we go. In this first example, we have quite a symmetrical position. White's up 2 pawns, but here the bishop's in the corner. You know, it's not got too much space this way. It's got a very good diagonal here, but there is a few, like a double pawn, but there is connected pawns here. But here is the isolated pawn, and what we can do here is we can protect that. And if we go bishop to e4 here, what we see here is, as we know, the pawn protects something diagonally. That's now protecting the bishop, and the bishop protects the pawn. So they're kind of like a battery together here. And what this does is, as we can see, there's no pawns or any other piece other than this rook, which obviously wouldn't be good to take it. So this is like an outpost with a knight from the last episode 10. But, as we see here, a bit different to the knight is the long diagonals it has. Obviously it can't go that way, but it has many squares compared to the knight when it only had a certain amount. So this is useful towards middle to end game when there's a lot less stuff on the board. We'll be going over that in one of the last examples. So, here is what is a frenchetto or fianchetto. There's multiple ways to pronounce it. Now, here, this actually came from the Queen's Gambit. There was this c4 pawn was in the end traded off here, and what they've done now is they've frenchettoed this bishop, it's called. So what happens is the bishop starts on f1 like normal, or c1, and then they go diagonally 1 square to either g2 or b2. What this does is this allows a very long diagonal. Sometimes when they castle, it would go exactly towards where the king is, which is why sometimes people do that. But also, as we see here, this is another level of protection to the king, as now this pawn is attacking all of these squares, and as we see, all of these squares are being defended now. Every single one of these. So, this is just a humongous defense, but there will obviously be cons to this. So you have, like, if the queen and bishop were with each other, they can attack from diagonals like this, come in like this, but by then you have other pieces to fend off in that scenario. So we use frenchettoing to either protect the king or use long diagonals for later use towards the end of the opening. So the third example is how bishops are good on long diagonals. So here we have an even position, and obviously here both bishops. Now, as we can see here, these bishops are very good. Now, this is the lower the amount of pieces, the better, you know, the bishops are going to be. So this is the thing, when you have a knight versus a bishop, it depends on the position. So if you had the knight, you'd want loads of pawns because they can jump over the pawns and get in behind everything. And it would be bad for bishop because it's going to be cramped and stuck behind everything. Whereas if you wanted a bishop, you need obviously as little pawns as possible so you can move about, and it just makes the knight, yes, the knight's also alright, but it just makes the bishop so much better, and it makes it as valuable as the knight. So here the bishop with these long diagonals, even the black bishop here, they have such long squares that sometimes it's good to either keep them in the corner, like over here, where you get that sort of really long diagonal, But sometimes even in the centre, like here, where you have, multiple lines down here, but it could also become, the centerpiece of attacking. So black might here, if there's a load more pieces, they might try and fully attack the bishop here. Now, this is the last example. This is a cramped position, we would say, as there is quite little, there's not too much attack going on for either team, so much defence here. But as we see here, look at the way the bishops are. Very symmetrical position for the way the bishops are. But what we say, why I'm saying this is cramped, is the amount of bishop moves. It's been trapped by its own pieces. It can't move to valuable squares because the pawn obviously stops it, and it looks a bit grim where they are. We move here, there's still nothing for us, and we don't really want to be moving back here because it stops our rooks protecting each other, and even after here, it's still the same thing. Same thing goes along with these bishops. Even worse for them, this is the only bishop that can move, as this is literally stuck by its own pieces. So also this bishop can only go to about 3 squares. And again, after it goes to, so let's say this bishop moved back, this is the only semi-decent diagonal out of all 4 bishops. So that's why in a position, so when you start off the game, knights tend to have more play than a bishop, just due to the amount of pawns and other pieces on the board. Sometimes you might have to swap off a bishop for a knight for a bishop. There's other ways you can do it. What you might want to do is, if you have a bad bishop, swap it off. So here, maybe if this had like another pawn and it was blocked everywhere, you might want to try and take this, and then if this made it worse as well, then the bishop would be bad afterwards. So there's many ways of that, and we're just going to show here. So that was a cramped position, and this is obviously an uncramped position. As we see here, many moves for the bishop, pretty much none of them as well, other than this position, these 2 squares. The bishop can go anywhere. It can go in the centre here and have a very good sort of attack. It could go here and have a very good, it can just come in behind. And then even for the black bishop, you see it has this long diagonal. Yes, it's right at the back, but as soon as you get up anywhere near here, you have this sort of line. Let's do that. You have this sort of line and everything. So you've really got to make sure that bishops and knights are the same material, so both 3 points, and you've just got to use them effectively. Just got to use them in the right position at the right time. So knights opening, middle game, and depending on the position could be the end game. But bishops probably opening, you use them as a protecting piece sometimes, then into the middle game, and that you can try and combine it with a queen, a knight, a rook, pawn, vice versa. It always works, so stuff like that. So that should be the end for today, where we are for the bishops. Next episode will be on the queen, so a very obviously one of the most powerful pieces. So hopefully you liked the Learn the Openings playlist. We'll be going over that probably every weekend. So there we go. And that should be it for today. So thank you and bye-bye.